At least you didn't break any of the parts. I know that's like so terrifying to me. Like, I'd love to build my own PC, but I just know...
There's definitely one thing I was scared of when I was putting it together. But my approach was just to go very slowly, very carefully. So it probably just took me definitely at least 3 times as long as it would take someone who knows how to do it. But then I didn't break it. Which is
that's the main thing. I know I just have like the most expensive part in my hand and be like, yeah, that looks like it goes there, and then just hear like crunch. Like, oh no. Welcome to Queer Coded. My name is Emily.
My name is Eli.
If you've not joined us here before, we're having a chat with some people from within the tech industry who identify as part of the LGBTQIA community to talk about their experiences within the community and the wider world. Today, we are joined by Agnes. Nice to meet you.
Hi everyone, hi. Thank you for having me here.
So what we usually just ask is kind of, what was your first kind of like foray into tech? What was your first experiences? Was it kind of like something you knew that you enjoyed from a young age, or was it something you found later?
Well, yeah, it was something I enjoyed from a young age. It's probably going to age me a bit, but when I first went on, I just had like a sort of a home PC at first that wasn't even connected to the internet, and just used to play games on there. Like, we didn't have a lot of games, but there was a golf game. Yeah, just little things like that, just messing about with. I wasn't sort of like coding in BASIC or anything, but just playing with settings or just seeing what I could do with the computer. And then I studied physics at uni. And obviously there's just a lot of interaction with tech, even if it's not coding within that. But we did do a little bit of coding in C++, but that experience probably, rather than motivating me to study software engineering, it probably sort of more put me off, because the way it was presented was very, like, we taught something basically quite difficult, and that if you had exposure to it before, you would have been fine, but the people who didn't, it was a bit sort of, well, this is like a really scary, difficult thing that is going to be difficult to do. And then, yeah, it's just since then my attitude's changed. So yeah.
No, I definitely get that. When I went first year of uni, I did psychology, because I was like, well, theory like sounds super interesting. I'd love to know more about it. And then you get there, it's just maths. It's just so much maths, and I just dropped out. I was like, this is not what I signed up for. So yeah, I totally get that kind of like whiplash of like, this is not what I expected. So what are you doing now with tech? What's your journey from that to this?
Yeah, so I did do like various projects before. So I've been involved with different community groups, setting up like a community social centre, things like that. And I would usually sort of navigate, sort of be drawn towards the tech side of it, setting up a website. And that's not just doing the tech side. That's also sort of teaching people how to be involved with it. Including people who maybe have less experience with tech. In terms of web development, it was very basic, sort of just WordPress websites, but it's still, I feel like those were kind of my initial forays into it. And I've always just been quite involved with doing sort of my own little projects outside of work. And just this winter gone, my project was to build a PC. So I hadn't done that before, so that was like a lot of research into different parts, what to buy, how they would fit together. And then when I built it, it's one of those projects, it's a very involved project, but when it's done, it's like it's done. So you can either then like build different things and spend lots of money building different things, or I decided to, I was then inspired to learn software engineering using the new PC that I'd built. So I started at the beginning of this year with that, initially just teaching myself with the free resources that were out there, like Free Code Camp. And then over time, once I realised I am really into this and I'm really interested and want to take it a bit further, then I signed up with Manchester Codes, which is like another coding bootcamp like North Coders.
Fab.
Awesome.
Did you run into any issues while building your PC?
Well, just the whole. I think actually the journey of building my own PC, it was quite sort of a good preparation for starting to learn to code, because sort of honing those like research skills and Googling skills. and asking for help when you're stuck as well. So when I was actually putting it together, there were a few points where like, well, these instructions make no sense at all, and I had to go and look at YouTube and things, and then it did sort of fit together. But I also did a lot of asked friends who knew how to do it, or asked on forums. So I feel like those were kind of like good preparation skills for that. For engineering.
At least you didn't break any of the parts. I know that's like so terrifying to me. Like, I'd love to build my own PC, but I just know.
There's definitely one thing I was scared of when I was putting it together. But my approach was just to go very slowly, very carefully. So it probably just took me definitely at least 3 times as long as it would take someone who knows how to do it. But then I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't break it. Which is that's the main thing. I know I'd just have like the most expensive part in my hand and be like, yeah, that looks like it goes there, and then just hear like crunch. Like, oh no.
So in terms of sort of getting into that sort of oeuvre of building a PC, that came from a community group work that you were doing rather than sort of your physics background.
Well, I guess, yeah. So it's so what I studied physics, and then I didn't actually go into that line of work. I've just done various different jobs. But yeah, I have had a continued interest in just technology. So yeah, just building various websites for community groups, like I mentioned, and the PC was community, but more like the wider community. So a friend in the queer community had built their own PC, and I guess just seeing someone I knew had done that, then made me think, oh yeah, maybe it is something actually that I can do. And talking with them, it sort of built up my confidence, and then I did have a go at it. And it is something that when you say it, that I've built my own PC, it sounds really impressive, but we're at the point where there's a lot of information out there, and obviously people who build PCs, they're also people who are into tech, so they've built these amazing great websites where you can, in the past you would have to find a part, and then you'd have to do lots of research to find what's compatible with it. Now obviously there's a website, you can sort of store your build on there, and you can there's a database that already filters out everything that wouldn't go with what you've already built there. So there's still research involved, but the community around it has made it a lot easier to actually put it together.
I think as well, just having like the world has become kind of like saturated with tech, so like there's not such a big step into it anymore. It's kind of just, you're already kind of surrounded by it, so just like you know what it is. It's just kind of like getting that push. This is a really stupid story. My friend, he took up vaping because like the little vapes you get, like the 5er ones, he wanted the boards out of them. So he's just got like a stash of them on his desk.
Okay.
But yeah, just kind of like always around us, you know what I mean? Yeah.
That's really interesting though, that sort of knowing someone who was queer who did something kind of led you down that path. Do you feel like having a queer identity is something that has impacted your career path through your life?
I think like yes and no. I feel like it's part of my identity that over time I've explored more, gotten to know more about, and as my identity has been changing, so has my career path. Ironically, getting into coding and software engineering, that was also sparked from conversations I had within the queer community. So I'm part of there's like a sober queer group where we it's a weekly event where we sort of cook food together and then eat it together, and usually there's an activity like a book share or a clothes swap or something like that. And within that group, and also there's a queer walking group that I'm part of, and within those groups there were just various people that were working in software engineering, and talking to them, I guess just sort of having that representation of visibility of someone that you know in your community who's doing it, it sort of inspired me to have a go, and also the way that conversations that even before I was asking them questions, I could like overhear conversations about it, but just the way that people were talking within the queer community, that was a much more inclusive way than I'd been exposed to before, where I guess what I'd heard about it before, especially what happened during my physics degree when I had that very difficult experience with C++. The conversations were more just kind of, I guess, like very gatekeeping conversations is what I'd been exposed to. And then within the queer community, it was much more sort of inclusive, inviting, and let me believe that this is something that I can do myself as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a kind of I don't know what the word for it is, but you can't be it unless you see it, but it's not always just kind of like just seeing it. It's also kind of something like those people, especially like in a queer community, there is very much trying to like lift up your friends, so like if they're enjoying it, they will try and get you into it. Yeah, definitely.
And I think there's, about most things, there's just like a sort of a culture of approaching and talking about things in a very inclusive way, like bringing people in rather than shutting people out.
Definitely. That sounds really positive. Which, out of interest, what's the queer walking group?
It's called Queer Out Here.
So my friend Ailish organises it.
Oh, you know Ailish.
Yeah. I was like, I wonder if that's...
Sometimes, like, with these groups, I think both the cooking group and Queer Out Here, they have, they've just grown so much that I'm almost sort of avoid saying the name in case there's like too many people. Because already, I mean, recently I've been a bit less since I've started doing the coding bootcamp alongside work, but it's something that in the long term I do want to continue to be involved with. And I used to just go on the walks, and then I've been sort of as a volunteer as well, being the person at the back of the walk, making sure that everyone's okay and moving along.
Amazing.
My rave mum. Love that. So how's the boot camp going for you?
I'm really enjoying it, actually. It's going really well. I chose it based on being able to sort of do it alongside work. I did look at North Coders as well, because I think you're very present at I went to Manchester Digital Festival and another festival called Reframe Women in Tech, and I think North Coders were present at both, but I had to choose something that would go in the evening alongside work. I was speaking to actually my friend who's doing North Coders and sort of comparing the two, and there's a lot of similarities, there's just the flexibility of like the classes being recorded, and there's a lot of support as well, and it's that nice sort of feeling of being part of versus before when I was learning by myself. That feeling of being part of a cohort is nice, and that you're able to sort of collaborate and ask each other when you get stuck, and just the experiences of moments where you're like, oh, this is impossible, how can I do this? So I've been stuck on this for ages, and you see your friends around, your people in your cohort are going through the same. I think that does help when you're kind of climbing the mountain that is learning software engineering.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like learning by yourself is like, it can be rewarding, but like you said, like if you're stuck, it's very unlikely you're going to know someone who's stuck on the same level as you. Yeah, you're either going to like find someone who is like, I don't know, 3 weeks behind you, or like 6 years ahead of you. Like there's no kind of middle ground. So yeah.
But in the moment when it is happening to you, when you are stuck, it's difficult to sort of fight against that feeling that is trying to swallow you. That is like, I can't do this, or like it's going to take forever, or this is impossible. But it really, really does help when you've got people to turn to who are sort of learning the materials at the same pace as you, and you've got that shared experience of being on the same course. And I know that here, even if you have a bigger overall number of people, that you divide up into sort of smaller groups so that people have that experience as well.
Definitely. I think that support is really important, as you say, and I think kind of just being able to see other people who are having that same experience and maybe struggling in the same way that you are is so important for stopping people having imposter syndrome, and just encouraging people to carry on, because I think if you were just in a room on your own and never seeing anyone else struggle at all, it's really difficult to keep that level of motivation high all the time.
Definitely, yeah. I tried to learn Python about a year before I joined North Coders, back when like furlough was happening, and it was like, hey, I've got 6 weeks, let's do something. And then I got 2 weeks in, just hit a wall, and like I said, there's no kind of like real support in that scenario, so you do just kind of go, yeah, this isn't for me then. And yeah, I think that's like a huge deterrent for a lot of people, in that it's not even just like, oh, this is too hard. Like literally it being too hard just kind of pushes you off it, and you just say, no, that's not for me then. So yeah, I think it's definitely really useful just to have that kind of support around you.
Yeah, and I think when people first try it, unless someone's just very decisive from the get-go and is able to commit to a course, that most people are going to try free resources first. And probably there will be moments when people are stuck, and I think it is a big part of it, that sort of mentality of how to approach that when you're stuck. But yeah, it does help having people around. And it's actually, I also sort of try to do the whole, I have been doing the whole like learning in public and starting up a tech Twitter account and things like that. And that's actually also helped with imposter syndrome, because through that, I guess Twitter is just great. It is good. It's not good for certain things, but it's good for like sort of finding very sort of smaller niche community. So I've sort of made my way to the queer tech Twitter part of Twitter, and there's also a lot of people are like sort of talking about their learning experience and building things. And obviously social media, so people are not like, usually people are not completely honest, but you do people are talking about sort of being stuck or different things they're working on, and that's also nice, just sort of following different people's journeys, even if they're different, living all around the world in different places, and not necessarily on the same boot camp as me. So that's also helped me feel like I'm on this journey as part of a wider community.
Nice, that's really positive. I suppose in terms of sort of the wider industry, obviously you're sort of on your way into it, but you've already got some experience surrounding it. Is there anything that you kind of feel like you would like to see change in the tech industry?
I guess it's important that if like everyone's human, and there might be times when something doesn't, especially when maybe if they're not familiar with the language around queer identities, if people are talking and it doesn't come out the way they intended, or they realise from the reaction that it's gone wrong, to then not brush that under the carpet, but instead deal with it and find out why it's upset some people. And if someone's been hurt by something, then like find out why and then improve. But I think it should be, I think we can hopefully take some of the sort of principles from within queer communities of calling people in rather than calling people out, and take that into sort of workplace environments as well, so that it's not like if you make a misstep then that's it, you're explaining why. But that I don't yet have it figured out of how that works when you've got the kind of the structures that you have within businesses of the IDE and different policies. Like I don't know what that all looks like yet, because I haven't yet made my way there. But
What is your kind of view at the moment of like queer diversity inclusion in the tech industry at the moment?
What's my view of it?
Kind of like looking forward to it, because I know we talk about this all the time. Like me and Eli working at North Coders, we went through North Coders, started working at North Coders, we're very much in a bubble. So it's always quite interesting to see kind of what people's view of it is outside of that bubble.
What I have sort of been exposed to and heard, there's definitely, I've come across some places that I know then I don't want to work there.
What kind of places are that? What ticks you off to that?
I guess it's just sort of what filters through about sort of attitudes within the workplace, or just different working practices and the approach to inclusivity. But I do see signs of like promise that there are like there's a lot of different companies where you kind of do get a sense that people are actively looking at this and trying to improve. I'm actually going to be working in the public sector, so that's going to be my role starting at the end of September, and I'm quite excited to I'll be joining sort of various employee resource groups and things like that, and I'm quite optimistic about what the approach will be like in that space with regard to inclusivity. And actually, I'm also there are different groups that are starting. Like there's an LGBTQIA plus tech forum that's starting from Manchester called Intertech. And I don't know when this will come out, but I'm going to an event related to that tomorrow evening, but I think that this will come out a bit later. So there's there are sort of different organizations and groups starting that hopefully will improve things and make things better.
Awesome. I think that's kind of a really good point though about kind of the discussions we have about places that we're drawn to as queer people, and we look for that inclusivity that's already there. But I suppose for the companies that don't already espouse those values, it's going to take someone to go in and force them to make those changes before that changes, or they're not ever going to, I would have thought, which isn't really a question, or it's just more of a statement of that's a shame, isn't it? Let's maybe we should reach out to some bigots.
Well, I think sort of change needs to happen on both fronts, really. Like, you, of course, you can't just recruit. You can't just sort of have an ID policy for your recruitment. You have to also be inclusive in the day-to-day running of the everyday environment of the company. I guess me, as someone new going into the industry, I'm aware there's already going to be quite a lot to learn, and a lot of things in the first few months, years that I'm taking in. So I'd rather go somewhere where I know I will feel comfortable, and maybe at future points in my career I'll be ready to sort of spearhead some change somewhere. But initially, that's not high on my priority to.
No, and I wasn't suggesting that should be. Go on, you take that on for all of us.
Just the role of the diverse part of the company to change the company.
Yeah.
That should be a whole company-wide effort.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's part of the reason that you're drawn more to like the public sector?
Well, I guess it is part of the reason, just because it is if it's a new company that I don't know much about, it's difficult to get a sense of what a company's like before joining it. And I guess with the public sector, I do have friends who work in software engineering in the public sector, in a different part of it, but I've sort of been able to hear things and think, that I could really see myself there. But for me, it's not just about what's the environment with the inclusivity within the public sector. It's also that I know that like building accessible web platforms will be at the core of what they do, and as someone, if I'm learning it new for the first time, that is very high on my priority list, to learn to build in an accessible way. And I guess I know for sure for public sector they have to do that, because people need to be able to access those services, and they don't have an option of a different service to use. Whereas in the private sector, again, that's something that is hard to determine when you're looking at job vacancies.
It's definitely something that companies sometimes treat as an add-on rather than something that should be there to be built upon from the outset, which is a real shame.
It's an interesting point though. We're talking about creating like these accessible spaces online. Because we were just talking about where does this change come from, but I think us going into those spaces and kind of being the architect of like accessible spaces online, where everyone is these days. Kids are like born into it and like grown up through it, whether that's a good thing or not. So kind of like already predefining these kind of like spaces and standards is way more powerful than I think maybe we realize. It sounds so silly, but I was on this website the other week and I showed you about it, but I got really, really excited because like their pronouns option was really, really inclusive. There was like 100 different pronouns and like stuff I hadn't even seen before, and I was like, this is so cool. It's just, and then someone said, instead of just having like a list of all of the pronouns ever, you just have a box and say, what do you go by? And I was like, yeah, but that's not the point. Like, they've gone out of their way here. And I think like exposing people to that kind of thing where they might have never even seen it is really important, because a lot of the time it's like you don't know what you don't know. So yeah, kind of like being the architect of that allows us to like push the conversation away, I guess, that we wouldn't really just have a chance to maybe just get drowned out in a real life space.
Definitely. And I think it's also very true that when you have more diverse teams, you're able to just come up with better solutions that work better, not just for a minority group, but for everyone, really.
And in terms of sort of, we have kind of touched on identity in the workplace going forward. Have you, in your career so far, felt any impacts towards your identity in your workplace, positive or negative? that have kind of led you to that point?
I guess I've been quite fortunate that, like, at least my job that I have now, I feel comfortable being just myself there. Probably jobs that I've had before, it's been more a case of it's not that I guess in more sort of the traditional office environments, I've been felt maybe a bit more sort of stifled, but things are slowly changing now. Sorry, I lost track of the question.
No, not at all. Just to do with like the feeling impacts towards your identity in the workplace, but I think you were on track with that.
Yeah,
definitely. I think that is quite, as you said before, though. I think as you get more comfortable in your identity, you're more happy to express that in the workplace and in the wider world. So I think probably that is sort of something that grows with time for a lot of people.
Do you feel like your identity has had any kind of difference throughout your career in like different sections of it? In that, did you feel more comfortable, less comfortable in like a certain area, or maybe that your identity, becoming more comfortable with your identity, has pushed you into a certain area?
That's an interesting question. I guess I've always like felt quite strongly that even though work is something that we do spend a lot of our time in, that it shouldn't like define who you are. Like, it's something that you do, and a place that you attend. Or so I don't think that work has been too strong a factor in shaping my identity because that's because of those views that I hold. But yeah, I guess it does make me, when I am in a workplace like the one that I'm in now, where I'm able to just turn up and be myself, it does improve my sort of well-being, and it takes energy to kind of like mask and be and present as something that's not your whole identity. So when I'm not having to exert that energy, then I've got more energy for like performing the job better. So, yeah,
that's a really good point.
I do want to mention just a couple of, there's when I was at the transition point of just learning with free resources by myself, and starting a boot camp, then one of the events that I went to was Code Bar Festival. It was an online festival, not went to, but attended. So Code Bar is an organisation that they are trying to sort of improve the experience for diverse communities trying to get into tech, and their event was just really, really welcoming, and just in the kind of the perfect event for me to go to as someone who's just looking to sort of break into this new sector. And the fact that they overtly they say on their website that they are open to trying to sort of help minority groups in tech, it made me feel like welcome to attend. So that's Code Bar is Code Bar, and there's various other groups like Code and Stuff that are also geared towards LGBTQI plus communities. So yeah, I definitely recommend, if people are looking to sort of start to get into tech or already are in that, to look up various communities that are out there that like can help.
Awesome. I think we do some work with Code and Stuff, don't we?
I think so, yeah.
I think they've had some events here.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. We do some work with Code and Stuff. They'll be coming back, hopefully.
Definitely. No, that's really great, and like good to recommend resources to other people who might be looking for a route into coding.
Is there anything else you wanted to throw in there? Do you want to plug your new book?
Don't have a book out yet.
Yet. I like the sound of that.
No, not yet. No, just what I said before about the various communities that are out there, like Code Bar, Code and Stuff, and also that if anyone is on their journey to learning software engineering and coding, to if that is for them, then just to have a go at finding various communities on Twitter and learning in public, and that can seem something that's quite scary to do and start, but like I found that actually when you start doing it, it does help to feel like you're sort of part of a wider community, and you start to sort of get to know certain people or communities. So it's not just like you're putting stuff out into the void. It's various connections that are forming, and that can all like help your learning journey.
Awesome, that's really great advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Agnes, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's been super interesting to talk to you. Thank you so much. Please join us next time. We'll have a new person from the tech community, and we'll see you there. Thank you.